youtube.com. You can also watch us. Yeah, we're on YouTube. youtube.com/Chase Thomas Podcast. Like and subscribe. Full episodes, clips, all the good stuff over yonder. John, Bryan Reynolds, he rejected a contract extension from the Pirates because the man has had enough of playing irrelevant baseball.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah. I would be kind of like, because it's such a beautiful park, that I would be kind of like, I'll never play in an important game, but like it's a really good place to go to work. Like the vibes here, the beauty night in or day in day out is pretty nice. Like it's a pretty good look.
If all you want to do is clock in and get paid, there are way worse places to do it than Pittsburgh. Like,
yeah, PNC Park's a good place to clock in.
It's
clock
beautiful. You go there, you have your Iron City, you eat a pierogi, you stand in right field for a little bit. Also, I'm sorry, because I just finally got the career hits list. I do just want to close this off. Here are the players Nick Markakis has more career hits than.
Oh, no.
Ryan Sandberg, Lou Whitaker, Alan Trammell, Carlton Fisk, Barry Larkin, Bernie Williams, Jim Thome, Eddie Matthews, Jeff Bagwell, Kirby Puckett. I could go on for quite some time with this. Willie McGee, Ron Santo, Edgar Martinez. Nick Markakis has more career hits than Edgar Martinez, than Mike Schmidt, than Willie Stargell.
I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer, John.
No, we're not doing this. He had more career hits than Joe DiMaggio, which granted, DiMaggio only played 13 seasons, but more career hits than Willie McCovey, more career hits than Willie Randolph, more career hits than Keith Hernandez, than Will Clark, than Yadier Molina, than Maglio Ordonez, than Larry Walker, than Don Mattingly, than Yogi Berra, than Ken Griffey Sr., than Jose Reyes, than Moises Alou, Maury Wills, Mike Piazza, Joe Mauer, Duke Snyder. Anyway, I'm going to stop naming guys now, but I find that just fascinating that, like, and granted, the funny thing is 2,388 career hits is still only 127th all time. This game is so incredibly hard. Like, it's so incredibly hard to play.
It is.
It's really something. But I also should know what I said before. Every member of the 3,000 hit club is in Cooperstown. That's missing, obviously, Miggy Carrera, Ichiro Pujols, and Adrian Beltre, all of whom will be Hall of Famers in the future. And, of course, Alex Rodriguez, who is never going to be a Hall of Famer. So,
Do you want to do 40 minutes on if A-Rod's a Hall of Famer, John?
No, I do not.
No, I don't want to either. Give me a deal, though, for Bryan Reynolds that makes sense. What kind of deal makes the most sense for you?
So when you say deal, do you mean financial or trade?
No, because financial we'll see. Like, he's still...
Well, financial-wise, as I was saying, like, looking at the news, it was like the Pirates offered him $676, which is just not a serious offer, and that he countered with $126. And that feels right to me because it's basically the AAV that Brandon Nimmo got in free agency. Yeah. And I don't necessarily know if Reynolds is as good as Nimmo. I think they're kind of similar value-wise. They get to it in different ways, but Nimmo is also a better defender. In terms of a trade, though, I think we're pretty much looking at contending teams that have holes in the outfield where they don't really have an internal solution that's going to present itself anytime in the immediate future. So for me, that looks like the Yankees are obviously part of that list, depending what they do in left field. I think the Braves are part of that list. I could see the Braves not doing it if they think Vaughn Grissom really cannot hack it at shortstop and would rather just tuck him in left field and kind of go from there. Otherwise, Cleveland can always use outfielders, but I don't know that they're going to want to make the expense. The White Sox really would just be better suited doing that, but I don't know how serious contenders the White Sox are going to be at this point. I could see, I think otherwise you're looking at teams where injuries might change the calculus for them. Like, for example, Philadelphia, if either of Kyle Schwarber or Nick Castellanos gets hurt and or Bryce Harper has a setback in his Tommy John rehab, if nothing else, to get one of Castellanos or Schwarber out of the outfield would probably be ideal for them. Similarly, I wonder if a team... I don't think Milwaukee would be a realistic place because they're not going to offer more money than the Pirates are anyway. Otherwise... And I think the other team, too, that has outfield holes that you should probably keep a close eye on this is the Dodgers, especially given their prospect haul and what they can offer to Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh clearly just wants as many prospects as it can get. So I'd say the Yankees, Braves, and Dodgers are probably the top of that list, with a second tier of contenders behind that who are, I think, a little better set, but might make a move depending on where they stand in Philadelphia, I could see, like, depending how things go with the Giants, maybe it'd be really funny if they traded back for him. And then maybe a team like, I mean, we could see how things maybe go in Seattle as well, but I have a harder time seeing those, if only because those teams have already expended, those teams are obviously a step down in terms of what they want to spend, both in terms of prospect capital and on a guy who at the very least is going to cost close to $150 million to retain long term. So, I think more likely than not, one of those three of Atlanta, New York, or Los Angeles ends up with him ultimately. I don't think there's any way the Pirates finish the season with him on their roster, or at least it would be malpractice on their part to do that.
It feels like LA is the favorite. I think the best fit, or the team that should actually do it the most, is Cleveland, because I think we'll get into Cleveland in a second, but I think when you look at that outfield situation in Cleveland, it's like hey, I understand, like, it is what it is with the Dolan ownership group, that they're never going to spend to the level that they should when they're fielding a contender, but like, he feels like the type of guy where you can find that in between for Cleveland, and I think you can make the case.
Well, for what it's worth, it's David Blitzer now owns that team. Or he's a new minority owner, and I assume
I don't
eventually
think he's taken over yet, has he?
He hasn't, but I assume eventually he will. But yeah, you're right that it is still a Dolan-led enterprise, and yeah, there's always going to be
you can put in a different owner, and I don't think it's going to change the calculus and spending all that money.
Well, and it's also because Cleveland is in a similar position as a team like Arizona, where it's like, why would we spend when we're so good at developing internally anyway?
Yeah,
and I think that's part of it. And I think, for as much as you can look at the group of Oscar Gonzalez, Miles Straw, and Stephen Kwan and go, yeah, you should get a better hitter than literally any of those guys, I also think that for Cleveland, the appeal there is that Straw, Kwan, and Gonzalez are going to make a combined like $6 million this year. So, and they're all going to produce. I think if there's one guy you worry about in that group, it's Straw, because while he's great defensively, the floor for him offensively is just, it's in the basement. Like, Kwan, I think, has shown that he can, at the very least, produce something close to league average numbers offensively while doing good defensive work in a corner. I think Gonzalez brings a nice power element to the team, and again, he's cheap, and he's also very young. He's only 25 years old, so I imagine there's an interest. So is Kwan. I imagine there's an interest there in just being like, look, we have two young guys. They're 26 and under. They're not making any money. They're good enough. Let's give them some rope. Let's see what they do. Straw, I think, is the difference there. He's already 28 years old. He's arbitration eligible already, so he's going to start getting more expensive as time goes on. And he's not nearly the same level of hitter or even potential hitter as those other guys are. So for me, I think, if Cleveland did want to get involved, it would make sense. But I just think that they're going to say, you know what, we've got a group we like. We're more about run prevention than anything else around here. Those three guys or at least Straw and Kwan are good defenders. I'm not sure about Gonzalez, but he plays right field, so less of a question there, I guess. Or what have you. So, yeah, I think you're right, though, I think the Dodgers are the best combo of fit, need, and had the ability to pay the price. Do you think they would give him the
deal that he wants, though? That's the only thing I would think about. Is it like, do you think they would give him that kind of long-term extension?
See, it's interesting because the thing going forward with LA is, what does their payroll situation look like, particularly if, and this is obviously going to be a thing, they're going to be all in on Shohei Ohtani next offseason. So I'm not sure if you're the Dodgers, you want to go handing out long-term extensions right now, or if you'd rather just keep all the powder dry and wait to see what happens with Ohtani. The other thing I wonder about with LA is if they'd rather wait and use their prospect capital and to see if a team like Milwaukee, for example, eventually goes, look, we cannot keep both Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff. One of them has to go. And that's a moment where the Dodgers sidle up and go, hey, you want some prospects for either of Corbin Burns or Brandon Woodruff? And then that's the guy they sign to some kind of extension or what have you. So I'm not sure. I think the thing with Reynolds is, he's 28 years old. He is most metrics have him pegged as an average defender at best. He's a mostly patient hitter, but not like a Nimmo level guy. Got some power. I think he's a dude who kind of settles into something close to approximating like maybe a Mitch Haniger career with a little less power, but more OBP. And I guess I'm ultimately not sure how much that's worth to a variety of teams where, if you're going to extend an outfielder, I feel like it has to be someone who is at least elite at one thing. And it's like, if you're an elite defensive outfielder, we can sign you to a relatively affordable extension because defense is one of those things that just doesn't draw the same money as offense. And if you're an elite offensive outfielder, I mean, it's like the Dodgers would rather save their money to pay a guy like Mookie Betts, which they already have, obviously, than I think they would to give Bryan Reynolds what he wants. I think Reynolds is a guy who probably isn't going to get an extension wherever he goes, and is just going to end up testing the market eventually to see what he can get, depending on again, it also depends on which team gets him. But the only team I think I could see making the effort to extend him would be a team like Atlanta, because that's just how they do everything. But I'm also not sure. I do wonder at some point when the money dries up for that kind of stuff, essentially, if they feel like, okay, we've got enough extensions now, we need to take a step back and just kind of let this play out, or what have you. But if the Yankees were to get him, I don't really see the Yankees signing him to any kind of long-term extension. I think he would just be a plug-and-play guy for the time being, because they don't really have a solution in left field right now. But I also think that, for the Yankees especially, a lot of this year, when it comes to the outfield in the future, is going to be watching what Jason Dominguez does down in the minor leagues and trying to get a sense of what do we have here, how ready can he be, and how good will he be. And I don't think they're going to want to close off a spot when they have that potentially down there. Similarly, I mean, if Anthony Volpe is the guy at shortstop going forward, and if Oswald Peraza is the guy, there are many Yankees infielders. But, maybe they want to leave that left field spot open as well for a guy like Oswaldo Cabrera, just to be there and be a guy who can fill in. Maybe they don't want to have that lockdown long term. Or maybe they end up going after someone like Max Kepler, who will come cheaper in every capacity. So, but I do think Reynolds gets moved, and I do think the Dodgers are probably the team that lines up best for it.
Yeah, the Braves, like you mentioned, unless they will say on Reynolds, it's just that, like, okay, I think the Braves' calculus at this point is they are going to make damn sure Marcell Ozuna is completely cooked and cannot help them, and is actively hurting them in the DH spot each and every night. And then they'll be like, all right, we literally can't play him anymore. And then we got to make a decision, like, what does Eddie Rosario look like? And look, again, not all that optimistic about what left field's looking like, and Ozuna obviously can't play the field. Vaughn Grissom, though, like, I don't know if you knew this, but like Ron Washington asked to have Vaughn spend the offseason with him in New Orleans.
I've seen some of the highlights of them, or a story about them working together, and it doesn't surprise me that, when it comes to an infielder, the Braves just put him in wash school, but like, yes. But I do think it makes it very clear that they are determined, or at the very least, what's the word I'm looking for? They're set on having him try to be the shortstop. They're going to they're going to make an effort to make him the shortstop. I think if he ends up in left field, it's not because they just give up on Ozuna, or just like, we just need to put someone there. I think it's going to be if Grissom plays and it's just very clear he cannot handle the position. But
yeah, and I mean, he's big for the position. He's a sneaky, huge dude, but he hit really well. So it's not really you're worried about the hitting; it's just the defense. But he's in wash school, and I'm curious to see what all that offseason prep looked like. And I feel like Elvis Andrus would be a Brave if Washington went back to Alex at this point, was like, hey, I got to be honest with you. I don't think he's going to be an everyday shortstop.
And that's part of it too, is I think you can trust that of any coach, Ronnie Wash is going to be the one to be straight up and be like, yo, he either can do it or he can't do it, Yes. So that tracks for me. I also think an Atlanta trade would be more feasible if Pittsburgh were willing to eat Ozuna's contract in exchange, and the Pirates are just not going to do that. So
they should, though. Do us a solid, Pittsburgh. Why not?
I think if not even just because of the money, but also just because of the insanely negative PR hit that would be of, we're trading essentially the only recognizable player on this team for a guy who's been suspended for domestic violence and for a DUI, and who just is flat out not good at this. Like, I understand that Bob Nutting just doesn't give a crap anymore, but like, there has to be some level of limit. I do wonder if Atlanta. I think you're right that Atlanta's going to see if Ozuna has anything left. I do wonder if they would be able to get any team at all to bite on just eating his salary in exchange for like a B-level prospect, just to get him off the roster and off the books at some point.
What did the kid do? I forgot about that in last year. To Bob Nutting, when he pretended he was going to take a picture with him.
Yeah, and then he had a shirt that said like "sell the team" on it or something.
Yes, that's what it was. And then you saw his face where it just